Daniel Moore stood at the observation window of the diplomatic station, watching the stars beyond 442b. His dark eyes showed no worry, no fear, no sign of the pressure he carried as Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. Behind him, the station hummed with the activity of 100 different alien species, each one more powerful, more advanced, more dangerous than the last. Commander Lisa Hayes of the species watched him from across the room. She had been observing humans for 3 months now, and she had reached a simple conclusion. They were too soft for this world. Daniel Moore proved this every single day. Daniel turned from the window and smiled at Lisa. It was a genuine smile, warm and open, the kind that made Lisa think of prey animals. He walked toward her with measured steps, his posture relaxed, his hands open at his sides. No defenses, no aggression, just Daniel. "Commander Hayes," Daniel said, his voice calm and even, "thank you for meeting with me." Lisa stood, acknowledging him with a slight nod. She was nearly 2 meters tall, with thick blue skin and eyes that could see into the infrared spectrum. Daniel was smaller, weaker by any physical measure, yet he seemed completely untroubled by this fact. "The Council is ready for you," Lisa said. "The trade agreement awaits your signature." Daniel nodded. "I read through the terms again last night. There are some sections I have questions about." Lisa felt a small surge of impatience. Every species that came before the Council tried to negotiate. They fought for their people, demanded better terms, threatened to walk away. This was how business was done in the galactic sphere, but Daniel had already proven 3 times that he would not fight. "The terms are final," Lisa said, not bothering to hide the edge in her voice. "The Council does not renegotiate." Daniel smiled again, that same calm, accepting smile. "I understand. Shall we proceed?" The Council chambers were vast, designed to accommodate beings of every size and shape. The tables stretched for nearly 100 meters, with seats for the representatives of 200 different species. Some seats were occupied by beings of crystalline structure. Others held creatures of pure energy contained in magnetic fields. Still others held beings that resembled nothing in Daniel's frame of reference. The corporate representative sat across from Daniel. His species was humanoid enough, with 4 arms and skin the color of old iron. His name was, and he had been negotiating trade agreements with minor species for 40 years. He had never lost a negotiation. He did not plan to start now. "The agreement is simple," said, his voice carrying the scraping sound of his kind's natural language. "Your colony provides labor for our mining operation. We provide payment in technological upgrades and resources. Everyone benefits." Daniel looked at the document before him. The terms were written in universal translation, clear and direct. The colony would provide workers. The payment would be minimal. The commitment would last for 25 years. There were other clauses too, smaller ones hidden in the language like stones in tall grass. Daniel saw them all. Lisa watched from the observation deck above. She saw Daniel's face remain peaceful, unconcerned. He did not argue, he did not negotiate, he simply nodded. "The colony will accept these terms," Daniel said. "When can we begin?" His mouth twisted in what his kind used as a smile. The negotiation was over. He had won completely. Daniel had conceded everything. Later that evening, Daniel attended a reception in the diplomatic section of the station. The room was filled with alien dignitaries, each one representing a species with greater power, greater numbers, greater technology than humanity. Daniel moved through the crowd easily, speaking with each one, listening to their stories, asking questions about their home worlds. When an official insulted human technology, Daniel laughed good-naturedly and asked the official to explain his perspective more fully. When an ambassador dismissed humanity as a new species with no value, Daniel thanked them for their honest opinion and said he was interested to learn how his people could earn greater respect. Lisa watched from the corner, her blue skin marked with patterns of disapproval. This human was not just weak. He was willing. He accepted every insult, every dismissal, every challenge without pushing back. He was not playing a strategic game. He genuinely seemed to believe that understanding others was more important than defending himself. At the end of the evening, Lisa approached Daniel as he prepared to leave. "You accepted the agreement very quickly," she said. "Yes," Daniel replied. "The colony needs resources, and the payment offered will help us develop faster." "You received poor terms," Lisa said. "Though we'll take more value from the labor than they will give back. This is common knowledge." Daniel looked at her with that same calm expression. Perhaps, but the alternative was to have no agreement at all. Some progress is better than no progress, don't you think? Lisa did not answer. She was beginning to understand what humans truly were. They were not brave. They were not strong. They were not worthy of the respect that more powerful species commanded. They were simply gentle, accepting beings who would smile their way through the galaxy without ever making a real mark on anything. "I think you do not belong among the Galactic Council," Lisa said quietly. "Your species is too peaceful for this place. You will be taken advantage of at every turn." Daniel's expression did not change. His smile remained calm and steady. "Perhaps," he said, "but we are here now, and we hope to learn from beings like you. Thank you for your time tonight, Commander. It has been valuable." He walked away, leaving Lisa standing alone in the reception hall. She watched him go, absolutely certain of one thing: humanity had no future among the stars. The gentle ones never survived when the hard ones came calling. What Lisa did not know was that Daniel had already begun making arrangements. What she did not understand was that a human's patience was not a weakness but a choice. And when that choice was taken away, when the vulnerable became threatened, when the innocent cried out for protection, the humans see the encrypted message reached Daniel more 3 weeks after the trade agreement was signed. The sender was Governor, the leader of the Outpost 7 colony. Her words were brief and urgent. Daniel read them in his private quarters, his face perfectly still. Then he read them again and again, making sure he understood every detail correctly. The children were being taken into the mines. Not adults, not volunteers, not skilled workers who had agreed to dangerous labor. Children, some as young as 5 years old, some no older than 8. They were being separated from their families and forced into tunnels where the mineral dust could destroy their lungs in weeks. Daniel closed his eyes. He had suspected this possibility, but suspicion was different from confirmation. Suspicion allowed hope. Confirmation left only action. He opened his communication terminal and requested a secure connection to Governor. It took 11 minutes for the link to establish. When his face appeared on the screen, Daniel could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the desperation, the guilt. She had sent her own granddaughter into those mines. The system left her no choice. "How many?" Daniel asked. 217, said. "They started with the youngest last week. The said small hands work faster in tight spaces. The parents tried to refuse, but the contract says any human in the colony can be required to work. The classified the children as humans, therefore they can be classified as workers." Daniel felt no anger yet. Anger would come later, but now there was only cold clarity, the kind of thinking that separated humans from other species. Other species fought when they were angry. Humans planned when they were certain they were right. "Send me detailed documentation," Daniel said. "Names, ages, location within the mines, work schedules, everything you have." "Daniel, there is no time for documentation. We need military intervention. We need Earth ships here now." "We will get them," Daniel said. "But we need to be smart about this. Send the documentation." He ended the communication and contacted the council directly. This time, he did not request a meeting. He demanded one. Lisa was surprised to see Daniel's name on the emergency session roster. This was unusual. Humans did not demand emergency sessions. Humans accepted the council schedule and worked within it. The chambers filled quickly. Daniel stood at the human position, 3 seats down from the representative. Was there, his 4 arms folded across his chest, looking completely unconcerned. "The colony has reported violations of the employment agreement," Daniel said. His voice was steady, controlled, without emotion. "Children under the age of 12 are being forced to work in mining operations. This violates the Agreement on Sentient Protection, Section 7, which states that no sentient being under the age of 16 can be required to perform labor deemed hazardous." Laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. "The humans signed the agreement willingly. The colony is authorized to provide labor. We are extracting that labor. The children are humans, therefore the children can be extracted." "The agreement permits labor," Daniel said. "It does not permit the violation of council law. The Agreement on Sentient Protection supersedes all commercial agreements." "Your position is noted," said the council chair, a being of energy contained in a magnetic field. "What is your response?" "We have violated nothing," said. "The humans agreed to provide labor. We are receiving it. If the humans have a problem with their own colony's operations, they should have been clearer in their agreement. This is not the concern of the Council. Daniel had expected this response. He had prepared for it. I request an independent investigation into the mining operations at Outpost 7, Daniel said. I request that the investigation be conducted by a neutral party with authority to enforce Council law. An investigation will take weeks, said. Perhaps months. During that time, the mining operation must continue or the humans lose payment. What will you do, human? Abandon your own colony. It was a trap. Daniel saw it clearly. Either the operation continued and more children suffered, or it stopped and the colony lost the resources it needed to survive. Either way, the one. But Daniel did not move, did not show frustration. His face remained calm, his breathing steady. An investigation will proceed, the Council Chair said. In the meantime, mining operations may continue at reduced capacity. Only adults ages 18 and above may be employed. This is unacceptable, said. The agreement does not specify age restrictions. The agreement on sentient protection does, the Council Chair said. You will comply. Looked directly at Daniel, and there was something like respect in his iron-colored eyes. The human had won a small victory. The children would be released. The operation would continue, but at reduced efficiency. But as Daniel looked back, smiled. It was not a smile of defeat. It was a smile of confidence. The human did not understand that this was just a delay. The human did not understand that they had already taken what they needed from the colony. The human did not understand that patience was a luxury only the weak could afford. Daniel left the council chambers and returned to his private quarters. He opened his secure terminal and began making arrangements. He contacted Captain Preston of the Earth Defense Fleet. He sent encrypted orders through channels that they did not know existed. He arranged for ships to leave Earth immediately with weapons and soldiers and rescue equipment. It would take 6 weeks for the ships to arrive at Outpost 7. During those 6 weeks, Daniel continued his work. He studied every word of the original agreement, looking for loopholes and violations. He gathered testimony from colony workers. He documented the condition of the children being released from the mines. And he waited. Sent him daily updates. The children were being returned to their families. The emergency session was called again, but this time the tone in the council chambers was different. Word had spread about the humans' accusations. Whispers moved through the galactic community. Some said Daniel Moore was preparing a major claim against operations. Others said he had discovered serious violations of council law. Lisa watched Daniel enter the chambers. He was different now. Not violent, not angry, not showing any outward sign of the fury she had read about in encrypted reports. He was simply present, with perfect posture, with a data pad in his hands, with the bearing of someone who knew exactly what he was about to do. Was there again with his 4 arms and his scraping laugh. But his confidence looked slightly worn now. The human had forced 2 emergency sessions in 1 month. This was unusual. This was wrong. This was the behavior of someone who had evidence. Daniel stood at the presentation platform in the center of the chamber. The data pad projected information onto the vast screens above, visible to every representative at the table. I present formal charges against corporate operations, Daniel said. His voice was clear, controlled, without passion. Violation of the Agreement on Sentient Protection, Section 7. Violation of the Agreement on Hazardous Labor, Section 3. Violation of the Human Trade Agreement, Clause 14, which explicitly forbids the employment of non-consenting workers. He tapped the data pad. Images appeared on the screens. Children covered in mineral dust. Children coughing blood. Children too small to hold mining equipment, yet holding it anyway. This documentation was collected over 3 weeks by independent observers from the neutral station at 12, Daniel said. The children were not voluntary workers. They were separated from their families without consent. They were placed in conditions that violate council law in 3 separate ways. These images prove nothing. These could be fabricated. The human species has no reputation for honesty in galactic affairs. The images were collected by neutral station observers, Daniel said. Their reputation is beyond question. Additionally, I have obtained testimony from 17 workers who were present at the mining site. Each one has been debriefed by council advocates. He tapped the data pad again. More information appeared. Documents, signed statements, medical records from the colony's clinic showing injuries consistent with mining labor in children as young as 5. Lisa leaned forward. This was not a complaint. This was not a request for help. This was a complete legal case, prepared and presented with absolute precision. I also bring to the attention of the Council a serious violation that was previously overlooked, Daniel continued. The original trade agreement itself contains language that could be interpreted as authorizing unlimited labor extraction. However, this language directly contradicts Council law. The Agreement on Sentient Protection was established 180 years ago as the foundation of all commerce. Any agreement that contradicts it is void. The Council chambers erupted in sound. Representatives shouted, called for order, demanded evidence. But Daniel stood calmly at the center, and the evidence was already there, projected for everyone to see. The Council chair, the entity of pure energy, spoke with a voice like thunder. What is your response to these charges? His face had changed. His confidence was gone, replaced by something close to panic. The humans are exaggerating the situation. Children were used in certain capacities, yes, but nothing that violated there. Daniel tapped the data pad again. Medical records appeared on the screens. Children with lung damage, children with broken bones, children with malnutrition, children as young as 5 with injuries that would affect them for life. I have also discovered that the mining operation removed minerals valued at approximately 15 billion credits over the 3-week period of child labor alone, Daniel said. The colony was compensated with only 3 million credits. This is a violation of the Good Faith Commerce Agreement, Section 2, which requires compensation to be proportional to the value extracted. The compensation was agreed upon, said, but his voice was weaker now. The agreement was signed by a representative who did not have full knowledge of its terms, Daniel said. This constitutes coercion under Council law. Additionally, the agreement was signed under duress, as it was the only way to secure resources for the colony's survival. This also constitutes coercion. Daniel looked directly at the Council chair. I request that the original trade agreement be void. I request that the corporation return all resources taken from Outpost 7. I request that compensation be provided for all damages, including medical treatment for the injured children and economic compensation for the families affected. I request that a Council monitor be stationed at the colony to ensure no further violations occur. The Council erupted again, but this time the argument was about whether Daniel's evidence was sufficient, not whether the had violated the law. The evidence was overwhelming, presented with perfect clarity, documented by neutral observers and backed by Council records. Stood again desperation in his eyes. This is an attack on sovereignty. We will not accept these charges. We will not comply with any ruling that contradicts our commercial interests. Daniel's face did not change, but when he spoke, his voice was different. Not louder, not more emotional, but somehow more solid, more final. Then humanity will address this violation through other means. The Council chambers went silent. Lisa felt her blue skin prickle. These were words of war. These were words that changed everything. The human threatens the Council, the chair demanded. No, Daniel said. The human states a fact. If the Council does not enforce its own law, then the party injured by the violation has the right to enforce it themselves. The Agreement on Sentient Protection includes provision for independent enforcement when Council action is insufficient. This was true. Lisa knew it was true. The provision was old, rarely invoked, created in case of exactly this kind of situation. A powerful species violating a smaller one, the Council unwilling to act. The Council will rule on this matter, the chair said. We will convene in private session. The human and the representative will wait for our decision. Daniel returned to his quarters and waited. Around him, he could sense the panic in the galactic community. The human had challenged not just but the Council itself. The human had proven that he understood the law better than beings with hundreds of years of experience. The human had made the Council look incompetent. 43 hours later, a message came through. The Council had voted. The original agreement was void. They were ordered to return all resources and provide compensation. A Council monitor would be stationed at the colony. It was a complete victory. The commander received new orders the moment the Council ruling was announced. All remaining resources at Outpost 7 were to be extracted immediately. If the humans wanted their colony back, they would get an empty husk. Nothing of value would be left behind. But the commander did not know that Daniel Moore had prepared for this moment 3 months earlier. The commander did not know that every child released from the mines had been given a simple task, a small task, a task that seemed meaningless to the who were watching. The children had been given the locations of the main power lines that ran through the mining facility. The first shift started at dawn. The workers moved through the colony's settlement, forcing workers into mining vehicles. The pace was frantic, dangerous, desperate. They were not mining anymore. They were taking minerals, taking equipment, taking anything that could be loaded onto their ships. The colony had no way to stop them. The security force was too strong. The human workers were too few. The only hope was Daniel, and Daniel was light years away. Until he was not. The first Earth defense ship dropped out of hyperspace above Outpost 7 at exactly 6 in the morning, colony time. Its arrival sent a shock wave through every galactic news network, but it did not fire. It simply appeared and waited. Then, in the mining facility below, something happened. The power went out. All of it, every light, every system, every communication device. In the tunnels beneath the colony, darkness fell like a hammer. The workers panicked. The extraction operation stopped. The enormous mining equipment went silent. Commander of the ran to the control center, his 4 arms working frantically at the communication systems. What happened? What caused the power failure? His engineers scrambled through the systems, searching for the cause. They found it in the documentation of maintenance work done 3 weeks earlier. Someone had marked the main power coupling for inspection, but the inspection had never happened. The coupling was now completely disabled. In the darkness of the colony below, something else was happening. The children, those small hands that had been deemed perfect for mining work, those children who had been separated from their families and forced into the tunnels, had been waiting for this moment. They knew the facility better than anyone. They knew every tunnel, every passage, every emergency exit. They had been memorizing the layout for weeks. When the security forces tried to move through the darkness, they found the tunnels blocked by small bodies that knew exactly where to hide, exactly where the dangerous passages were, exactly how to slow down an invading force in terrain that gave them no advantage. The children of Outpost 7 were not fighting with weapons. They were fighting with knowledge, with speed, with the one thing that they had not counted on, the human impulse to protect the young, no matter the cost. The security forces could not move effectively in the darkness. They could not use their superior strength in passages designed for human proportions. They could not find their way when small voices whispered directions in a language that meant nothing to them. In orbit, Captain Preston watched the mining facility's power signature disappear completely. He sent a single command: begin descent, retrieve all humans, authorized to use force if necessary. The Earth defense ships dropped toward the colony like hammers falling from heaven. The first ship landed at the colony's medical center. Soldiers in combat armor moved out, weapons ready, faces hard. They were not there to negotiate. They were there to retrieve humans. They were there because their commander Daniel had sent them to save children. Governor ran toward the first soldiers she saw, tears streaming down her face. They are in the tunnels. The children are in the mines. The soldiers did not wait. They formed teams, grabbed emergency lights, and moved into the darkness. Behind them, other teams established a perimeter around the colony, weapons aimed at any who tried to move toward the civilians. The darkness in the mining facility became a hunting ground, but the hunters were not the ones who thought they were in control. Commander realized the situation was lost. The power outage had crippled his operation. The children had somehow sabotaged the facility. The humans above ground were being defended by a military force that appeared without warning. Most importantly, he was facing something that every conquering species eventually discovered. Humans who were determined to protect their young were more dangerous than any technology. He retreated to the command vessel and sent a message to Daniel Moore, who he knew was on the diplomatic station. "Your species attacks without cause," said. "This is an act of war." Daniel was in his quarters when the message came through. He listened to it calmly, then recorded his response. "You kidnapped and exploited children," Daniel said. "You violated Council law. You refused to comply with the ruling of the Galactic Council. The operation at Outpost 7 is now under Earth protection. All personnel will evacuate within 1 hour or they will face military action. All mining equipment and extracted resources will be left intact for transfer to the colony. These are not negotiations. These are requirements. The hour passed. The commander made a final decision. He could not win. He could not even maintain control. He ordered the evacuation. The ships lifted off from Outpost 7, their cargo holds lighter than planned, their operation in ruins. As they accelerated toward hyperspace, they left behind something they had not expected to leave. 217 human children, alive and mostly unharmed, united with their families once more. The darkness in the mining tunnels gradually faded as the Earth soldiers restored power to key systems. The children emerged into light, blinking and crying and reaching for parents and grandparents who held them like they were the most precious things in the universe. Captain Preston reported back to Daniel. All humans retrieved. No child fatalities. 3 injured, all expected to recover. All personnel have departed the system. The colony is secure. Daniel received this message in the council chambers, where he was standing before the Galactic Council. Lisa Hayes was watching him, and for the first time she truly understood what he was. He was not mild. He was not gentle. He was a human who had chosen patience as his weapon until that patience no longer served those he was supposed to protect. And when that moment came, when the vulnerable needed help, the human capacity for decisive action had appeared fully formed, complete, and absolute. Daniel looked at the council chair. The colony is now under Earth protection. Any future violations will 3 weeks after the evacuation. Daniel Moore returned to the diplomatic station. The media was calling it the greatest victory by a newer species in council history. The news networks repeated the same words again and again: humanity, courage, precision, justice. Some were already calling Daniel Moore a hero. Others were calling him dangerous. Lisa Hayes waited for him in the observation chamber where they had first met. She had been replaying that conversation in her mind for weeks, studying every word, every action, understanding now what she had completely missed before. Daniel entered the chamber with the same calm walk, the same open posture. He looked exactly the same as he had weeks ago. Nothing had changed in his appearance or his manner, yet everything had changed in how Lisa understood him. "Commander Hayes," he said, offering his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Lisa took it, her blue fingers touching his human skin. The contact meant nothing physically, but it meant everything politically. She was acknowledging him as an equal. "I was wrong," Lisa said. "I dismissed your species as weak. I believed gentleness was the same as weakness. I was wrong." Daniel smiled, and this time Lisa understood that the smile was not the smile of prey. It was the smile of something much more dangerous and much more human. "You are not wrong about everything," Daniel said. "Humans are gentle. We prefer peace. We search for solutions that harm no one before we consider solutions that do harm. But gentleness is not weakness. It is a choice." Lisa led him to the window where she had first watched him. The stars beyond 442b were the same, but the universe around them had changed fundamentally. "Why did you accept the terrible trade agreement?" Lisa asked. "Why did you not fight immediately?" "Because the colony needed resources," Daniel said, "and because I had to understand the full scope of what was happening before I responded. They were confident that we did not know the true terms of the agreement. They thought we were naive or stupid. I allowed them to think that for as long as necessary." "You used your apparent weakness as a strategic advantage," Lisa said. "I used patience as a strategic advantage," Daniel said. "Humans have long history on a harsh world. We learned that strength without wisdom is just destruction. Patience without action is just surrender. But strength combined with wisdom and patience combined with action creates something that few species understand." Lisa nodded slowly. "The children in the tunnels, they were part of your plan." "Not my plan," Daniel said. "The colony's plan. Governor and I discussed what they might do. We understood their pattern of behavior. We knew they would escalate when they realized they could no longer operate as they wished. We prepared the children to help themselves when that moment came. We did not ask them to fight with weapons or with violence. We asked them to use the only advantage they had, knowledge of the place where they were imprisoned." "That is why the power failed," Lisa said. "One of the children sabotaged the main power coupling." "Not a child," Daniel said. "A young person named Sung, 14 years old. His small hands were perfect for the mining work the wanted, but his mind was even better suited for other tasks. We taught him which systems were vulnerable. We gave him a timeline. We trusted him to act when the moment was right. Lisa turned to look at Daniel directly. Do you understand what you have done? The Council must now accept that humans are a major power in this region of space. You have proven that we are not as intelligent as we believed. We are not as competent as we believed. We allowed corporate interests to override our own laws. I understand, Daniel said. And humans do not seek to dominate the Council. We seek only to participate equally, to have our voices heard, to ensure that our people are not exploited or abused. But we will no longer accept mistreatment quietly. We will no longer smile and accept poor terms. We will no longer be dismissed as too gentle for galactic politics. What will happen to the corporation? Lisa asked. They will be tried for crimes against humanity, Daniel said. They will be found guilty. They will pay compensation and face restrictions on their operations. More importantly, other species will see what happens when you underestimate humans. They will learn that patience is a human trait, not a human weakness. Lisa looked out at the stars again. In those stars were thousands of civilizations, millions of worlds, countless possibilities. And now, one of those possibilities was a human civilization that was not content to be passive participants in the galactic community. I am sorry for doubting your species, Lisa said. Do not apologize, Daniel said. Help us. The Council needs beings like you who are willing to see truth even when it challenges what they previously believed. We need allies who understand both the necessity of mercy and the consequences of its absence. Lisa turned to him. I will help, and I ask that when humans take seats on the Council, you remember that some of us were wise enough to change our opinions. Daniel smiled, and this time there was genuine warmth in the expression. Remembered and recorded in the Council archives. That evening, Daniel returned to Outpost 7. The colony was different now. The mining equipment had been removed. The tunnels were sealed. The families that had been separated were together again. In the residential sectors, children played and learned and grew, free from the fear of exploitation. Governor met Daniel at the landing platform. Her granddaughter was with her, a young girl named Jin who had been one of the smallest workers in the mines. She wanted to thank you, said. Jin stepped forward. She was 7 years old and her eyes were bright and clear. She had been through something that should have broken her, but the human capacity for resilience had kept her whole. Thank you for saving us, Jin said, her small voice carrying perfect clarity. Daniel knelt down to her level. Thank you for being brave. You and the other children saved yourselves. We simply gave you the tools and the time. You did the work. Jin smiled, and in that smile was the future. All of it. Every human who would grow up free on this world. Every child who would look at the stars and know that humans belonged there. Every generation that would understand that gentleness and strength were not opposites, but partners. Daniel stood and looked out at the colony. It was a small thing, this place. A few thousand humans on a distant planet. But it had forced the galactic community to reconsider its entire understanding of what humanity was. The mild human had shown his fury, and nothing would ever be the same. In the weeks that followed, the Galactic Council issued new regulations. Every species would be required to present trade agreements with explicit protections for vulnerable populations. Every species would be required to provide independent verification of labor practices. The old council structure, which had seemed permanent and unquestionable, was restructured to include human representation. Lisa Hayes was the one who proposed the amendment creating the Human Protection Commission, a body dedicated to ensuring that the events at Outpost 7 could never happen again. Daniel Moore was the first chair of that commission. And on quiet evenings, when Daniel stood at observation windows looking out at the stars beyond 442b, he thought about patience, about how humans had learned to wait on a harsh world, about how that patience had created wisdom, about how wisdom combined with the human will to protect the young and the vulnerable created something that no amount of technology or military power could overcome. The human species had arrived in the galactic community not as conquerors or as servants, but as something far more valuable, as people who understood that power without purpose was meaningless and that protection of the innocent was the greatest purpose of all. The stars looked different now when viewed from a world where humans had finally shown their true strength. They looked like a frontier waiting to be explored, They looked like a home waiting to be claimed. They looked like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. And in the darkness of space, other species slowly began to understand the truth that Lisa Hayes had learned in that observation chamber. The gentle ones were not weak. The patient ones were not passive. The humans were something new, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again. Be met with immediate military response. Additionally, we are filing a formal complaint against the corporation for crimes against humanity. This complaint will be heard before the full council. The humans have spoken. For the first time in the history of the Galactic Council, they had to listen. But Daniel knew that victory in the council chambers was only the first battle. They would not accept this ruling. They would not comply voluntarily. They had made too much profit from the colony. They would fight, and when they fought, legal arguments would no longer matter. Daniel opened his secure communication channel and sent one simple message to Earth Defense Fleet. Begin final approach. Operation Rescue is authorized. The mild human was done being gentle. Slowly, cautiously, they were not happy about the reduced workforce, but they were complying with the council order, for now. But's final message was different. She told Daniel that the commander had received new orders from his corporate headquarters. The operation was being accelerated. All remaining resources would be extracted within the next month. And when the colony had nothing left of value, they would simply leave. The humans would be abandoned, their small planet stripped of everything worth taking. Daniel read this message and felt something shift inside him, not anger. Anger was for later. Right now, there was only cold certainty. The mild human had a plan, and it would change everything. He sent one final message to, "Help is coming, keep the children safe." Then he began the last phase of preparation, the one that would show the galaxy exactly what happened when someone threatened human children. For action would reveal itself in ways that would shock everyone who had underestimated it. Daniel walked to his quarters, his mind already calculating 6 months ahead, already planning for the moment when the trade agreement would become exactly what he feared it was, a cage for his people. And he was preparing the key to that cage, one quiet decision at a time. The mild human was not as mild as anyone believed.